Just want to make a comment about the policing in the city centre here in Manchester. Good morning, it's the 11th of April, Saturday. Just like when I got sucker punched in the face last week by some vulnerable homeless guy, I reported him, the police came, and he was not arrested. He was just told to go away. Just in front of me on the park benches there's a big gaggle of vulnerable people sharing drugs, getting up in each other's faces, hugging. So I can only conclude that the Greater Manchester Police sees the homeless as utterly subhuman, almost to the point of being animals, where they can commit low-level crimes, like begging aggressively. There's a guy sat down there, he's not being aggressive, but there's deranged people going cold turkey, running up to bystanders, getting within an inch of their faces. The camera stopped there, so there's deranged people going cold turkey, going right up to people walking past, inches from their face, demanding change, and it's being tolerated. There's big groups of people coughing like sea lions, honk, honk, honk. Again, the police are not breaking them up or trying to save their lives. I can only conclude that the laws and rules exist for everyday normal people, and that if you are vulnerable and on the street, then you're subhuman. You're not going to be told to self-isolate. You're not going to face the law when you steal or assault or are violent. You're just pushed aside. And I actually agreed with Mayor Rudy Giuliani in the 90s, the kind of zero tolerance approach. There's some old sociological study, criminology, about even a broken window in a house can eventually turn into a crack den. And again, the police tolerating low-level crime, they might think, oh, it's just low-level, but these things fester, they escalate, and again, it's ignorance of the demons we all have inside us. You give an inch, they will eventually bite off a mile. Abandoned shopping mall. Hi everyone, there's a quote from Yoda that I've not said on this channel for about 9 years, so it's time, now that we're in the middle of the coronavirus lockdown, and I see this in people's eyes. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. One thing I love about Great Britain is I guess the metaphysics of Britishness and fairness and being a gentleman and doing things correctly and not being an extremist, not falling into either fascism or communism, just being tempered, trusting in the ancient Greek idea of eudaimonia, which means the kind of middle route, without extremities, just go this way. So the reason I raise this, number 10 Downing Street, which is the British version of the American White House, where the government, well, where the Prime Minister lives. They issued a statement yesterday, very quickly, because there were certain police forces in the UK that were getting a little bit, just a little bit Stasi in their tweets and in their threats against the British public. There was an overzealous Cambridge policeman who said, oh, we're going to be making sure you're not in the non-essential aisles at the supermarket, and going up to people sunbathing. And the government issued statements last night, and it's nice to see the actual legislature smacking down the police state, as it should be. So again, still very positive about this country. I think, you know, even with the kind of ridiculous death toll and the insanity that is happening, we will eventually get through this. I hope it doesn't take 18 months, as they're now saying in the paper. I told you about 3 videos ago, they'd say 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months to a year. Now 18 months. I reckon in about a month they're going to say lockdown for 3 years. I hope not. It's crazy. I've got a 1-year-old baby. His birthday's tomorrow. Quarantine birthday. Welcome to the world. Good morning. Just your coronavirus update here with Charlie Veach. There's 103,000 dead around the world. There's 1.7 million. These are all confirmed cases. We're not going to get into the unconfirmed hypothetical ones. We're back in central Manchester. Just a few messages from the government. They're saying everyone must still remain at home. As I said in my previous incarnate rant, the police have been smacked down. It's still sunny and warm. I've been investigating the city centre and it is very quiet. Also, a couple of comments on the last video. Yes, my voice is a bit hoarse. just like a pony, but I don't think it's the COVIDs. I think I'll be okay. And there was another guy saying, Charlie, how dare you smile? Look at you grinning. End of the world, you should be home with your family. Very strange. When I come out to do these videos, it takes about 90 minutes. And that is a welcome break away from the screaming brats. So anyway, let's go into the city and have a look. Hope she gets daddy. Just a little story. About 5 days ago, I went to the supermarket with my daughter Maya, and in front of us, one of those big fat posh wood pigeons got struck down by a hawk and killed. And then we were like, wow! And the hawk was looking at us, and then it was trying to do that whole flappy thing where it was trying to take off with the fat pigeon, and it couldn't. So it abandoned its kill. And I was like, Maya, just stand back. It'll come back. So we went back about 20 meters, and the hawk came and proceeded to take all the feathers off the pigeon. And it was like, wow, it's The Walking Dead. We're back in nature. It's incredible. Hi everyone, Charlie here. It's the 13th of April. This is your coronavirus update. This is the optimistic green shoots spring edition. Look how sunny it is. It's actually a lower temperature today. It's about 8.5 degrees Celsius. But if you stand in the sunshine, the photons hit your skin and excite them in such a way that it makes you feel warm. So, what we're going to talk about today is the end of coronavirus. We're going to talk about how I think in 6 months, things will slowly start getting back to normal. The mortality rate, again, it's a big unknown. I am of the mind that organizations and governments around the world, they aren't going with the World Health Organization official 3.4% mortality, because that's quite high. That's almost double Spanish flu, and so it freaks people out. We've got stories, and I've been watching a coronavirus update daily. Pretty much, I've not missed an episode of Stij Hexenhammer 666. He's based in Holland. He's from Vermont. He wears a leather jacket, does the whole talk to the camera. And he is now, I think he's exasperated with this virus, and he's now talking about how the mortality rate is 0.01. They're the same as seasonal flu. The reason he says that it's slowing down in New York because there's not enough bodies now. The coronavirus has already infected such a vast amount of people, but I actually disagree. Neither of us are virologists. He's now calling it a nothing burger, whereas I think this is a Royale with fucking cheese with added bacon. Let's say the death rate is somewhere between 1 and 3.4%. That's still bad. That's still very bad. Generally, I support what the medical professions have advised the governments to do, which is to lock everything down. And Sweden was the great white hope of saying, oh, you don't need to quarantine. But the horrible news is I think Sweden's about to quarantine and shut down their schools, so they're kind of contradicting themselves. Anyway, you might be wondering, why am I in some brown site in Salford? Well, I was going to come and give you a kind of nice Walking Dead post-apocalyptic walk around. There was the biggest abandoned housing estate in England. Even ITV did a story about it because there's a couple of houses that held out. Well, everything's been razed to the ground. It's all around me. All around here there was a massive housing estate near Salford Shopping City. I'm going to show you old Chernobyl, old Pripyat in the background, and it's still up there, and that blows my mind. I don't know if you can see what it says on that building. Where is it? That one there. It says Salford Shopping City with a big arrow in red saying this is where you go to shop. Ugly. So, conspiracy theories about the coronavirus. I'm not going to even enter that world because here's how it works. I am an expert on entering, running in and exiting the world of conspiracy theory, whether it's via Alex Jones, David Icke, all the other crazies. And look, no disrespect to anyone who is in the conspiracy theory rabbit hole. I fell into it. It took about 4 years to work my way out. Of course, it did help that I had £100,000 of a BBC documentary put behind me to take me to Pennsylvania, New York, Washington, D.C., meeting demolition experts, meeting the FBI, meeting the CIA, staying in room 101 in some Manhattan hotel. It was actually room 101 that I was in, and we all had a good laugh about that. But, no, look, the issue with conspiracy theory is that it is unfalsifiable, much like any research into true consciousness. You can't falsify it. And again, when David Icke starts talking about his reptilian overlords and they're from a different dimension and they control George Bush Sr. and George Bush Jr. and all that good stuff, when he talks about the CIA have got these patches that they make you need drugs every 12 hours, and if you don't get your CIA patch, then you die. These are black operations, and I know because I'm David Icke, and they tell me these things. Why am I speaking in an Alex Jones? You can't falsify their paranoid beliefs, and if I could be useful again on this channel as someone that very publicly exited the world of conspiranoia, and I'm so much better for it, my advice would be to anyone that is tempted to argue and enter a debate with a conspiracy theorist is probably best not to, because by entering and discussing the wild and crazy things that they are presenting, you are validating and giving power to their arguments, because instead of it being woohoo, crazy talk, it enters the world of, ooh, this is a serious hypothesis which we rational, intelligent people must now debate. No, you don't debate people who think 5G is causing the virus. You don't debate people who think that powerful elites have a reptilian Draco constellation soul in them. You don't argue with people who still think 9/11 was an inside job, because it's unfalsifiable. And every bit of reason that you use, every bit of intelligent and proper bit of thinking that you use will be swallowed up by the conspiracy as misinformation or a shill or a government agent wanting to break the news. Now, the official conspiracy theory about coronavirus, now that I've said all that, is that the Chinese Communist Party, they, in their weapons labs, and again, there's a few bits of truth. There was a couple of American scientists, I think, arrested for espionage, for spying, for selling the Chinese samples of viruses. Someone at Harvard, I can't remember his name, was he named Charles, the first name, Charles Heisenberg or something like that? He got busted by the CIA or whatever the law is for selling viral samples to China. And here's the thing, like, we're all meant to believe that these biomedical research labs, level 4, viral research, it's all just, civilian research, and they're just finding out more about the virus to help us at the end of the day. If that were the case, if this was an international community of scientists studying the virus for the betterment of humanity, why did the Chinese Communist Party have to pay top dollar to tempt some American traitors, I guess, to sell them viral samples? Surely viral samples, if this was true scientific research, would you just phone up your man? Oh, it's Johnny Chung here in Beijing. I need 7 samples of the 2015 bat coronavirus. And then at the end of the night, you got Bradley Chad Cooper. You go, hey, Johnny, I'm sending it over. But it doesn't happen like that. They steal it. And so, what we're all starting to wake up to now is that there is a covert biological weapons war going on, a Cold War going on between, I guess, all the top players: Russia, China, America. Britain is, or used to be, really into chemical and biological warfare at Porton Down near Salisbury. So the official conspiracy theory is that the Chinese at the Wuhan Institute of Virology were tinkering with a bat-derived coronavirus, and I can't remember her name. It was a very advanced, very prominent virologist in China, who I don't know if she's been disappeared. Probably she has been disappeared. She found that the only way to make, and again, Please correct me in the comment section if what I'm about to say is scientifically wrong. But this Chinese lady virologist, she figured out the issue is the binding, that the bat virus, obviously it wants to bind to bat DNA or RNA. And so what she did, she took out that genetic sequence and added the HIV human ticky thing to make the coronavirus hyper contagious to humans. And I watched the documentary from the Epoch Times, and again, a little bit conspiracy theory, a little bit tinfoil hat. And I don't think there is a smoking gun, but there's enough circumstantial evidence of things that Chinese have done. Like there's that CNN article this morning. China has banned research by scientists into the origins of the coronavirus. Now that is very suspicious. Very suspicious. But again, we do not have a smoking gun. Was it made in the lab? Was this an accidental release of a biological warfare program? We might never know. But one thing we do know is that the Western governments reacted very, very strongly. And so maybe intelligence agencies, the British government, the American government, etc., believe this was a bioweapon accidentally released from the Chinese. So to kind of, now that we're 10 minutes in, the point of this video was to give you the end of coronavirus, the end game. I don't think we are at herd immunity. I don't think when the lockdowns start to end in a month or 2 months or 3 months, I don't think it's going to be kumbaya, singing around the fireplace and everyone with rainbows and sunshine and happiness. I think the 1,000 dead per day will continue in the UK. The 2,000 a day dead will continue in America, and this will be an ongoing problem for the next year or 2 years. So they may still be asking the elderly, the medically vulnerable, to still continue to isolate. So in my last video, where I said things like Starbucks or McDonald's or nightclubs won't exist in the exact same way, for the next 2 years, there's probably going to be a very strong discouragement from the powers that be, from the establishment, for people to go out and mingle, to go to concerts, to go to cafes. There's going to be almost like a kind of a cultural pressure, in the same way that there was a cultural pressure against young men in the West who would not volunteer to go to fight the Kaiser or to fight the Third Reich 20, 30 years later. There was great shaming in the UK for young men who were called conscientious objectors, who didn't want to go put on a uniform to go and fight and die and get blown up and have their intestines spilled out as they're screaming for their mummy. Fair enough. What's that film, Hacksaw Ridge? The guy who everyone thought he was a dick because he wouldn't pick up a weapon. And by the end of the film, his platoon over in Okinawa, or where was it? Iwo Jima? Okinawa? Anyway, some Japanese fight with Hacksaw Ridge. And his name was, oh fuck, Delroy Bobo. And by the end of the story, his whole, oh, the big butch Chad man, fuck you, you're not picking up a rifle, you stupid Seventh-day Adventist twat, pacifist arsehole. And because that man single-handedly, with the power of God in his heart, saved the lives of like 30 men. They were like dying on the battlefield, and he dragged them back to get medical attention, save their lives. By the end of that experience, they literally treated him as a Jesus Christ figure. Fucking hell, that was a good tangent. Yeah, conscientious objectors. I'm sitting on the fence. Yeah, you got to fight the Nazis, you got to save the world, but being forced to go to war to die when you're like 20 years old, let's save this for a different video. So, as the lockdown ends, there's going to be, I guess, very strict societal pressure to not do the mingly things which could cause a second and third wave of the virus to come, which is kind of starting in China right now. They're getting a lot of extra cases. So I don't want to be an alarmist anymore. I don't want to think it's the end of the world. It was great to kind of, put on the body armor, start the quarantines, lock everything down, see what happens, see if the hospitals fill up. They are pretty full, the mortuaries are full as well. But I don't think this is an extinction level event. And I'm grinning, not because I'm insensitive of the 1,000 people that are dying here in the UK. I'm grinning because the sun is shining, Kids are still being born. People are still following their dreams. People are still worshipping whatever they want to worship. And my voice is getting a little bit less hoarse. So it's all very good. What we'll do, I shot a few videos a couple of days ago and maybe a couple yesterday. I'm going to stitch it all together, and this is your April 13th coronavirus update. Now get out there and remember, sorry, two things. Have you ever seen a channel on YouTube called Captain Disillusionment? Brilliant. And the last thing I want to say is, it's actually Captain Disillusion's tagline. Yes, yes, look at this guy. He's having more fun than us. Me ranting, you watching. He's on a bloody motocross bike. Smell that two-stroke engine. Lovely. Captain Disillusion, he ends his videos. He's fucking, look him up. He goes, love with your heart, but use your head for everything else. So when you see those conspiracy theories that are like, they're like hooks, like, oh, I've got to take part, I've got to argue with them. Don't bother. Take care. Peace out.